Hi folks, and welcome to the Nuclear Snell channel. Today I'm gonna give this Nerf gun, which you might recognize from my rust paint video, a stock. So it's gonna be a really quick build because I don't have a lot of time, I apologize for that, but I still gotta make a cool Nerf gun modification for my friend Amin. So yeah, let's do this. It's gonna be a really quick build, as I just mentioned. It's not gonna be the perfect Nerf gun stock build or whatever. It's gonna be far from perfect, but it's gonna be really quick. Let's do this. So here you see a piece of plywood, and I already have sketched the basic form of the stock right here. So it's about 22 centimeters from this point to this. So it's still a rather short stock. I like short stocks. Let's start by cutting this out on the scroll saw. If you don't have a scroll saw, you can just use a manual scroll saw, whatever that's called. You know, those manual ones, but it's slower. When using a scroll saw, always wear safety glasses. I think of all tools, it's the one most likely to throw something into your eye. So stay safe. I just take some double-sided adhesive tape, you see it here, and just attach that stock right here for now, just to see if it fits. And yes, it does. I'm gonna attach it now using a bolt. Yeah, so just drilling through both the stock and the gun right here. There's the hole. And these parts I'm gonna use as sort of washers. So I'm gonna clamp them under the bolt. So now I'm clamping this very tightly into my vise. And I actually had trouble getting through that, because my drill is not the best, and that seems to be made out of hardened steel. So I'm using some cutting oil, which I have from my pal Trashman. Thank you, Trashman, again for this. And no problem now. I'm also tidying up immediately because I'm German. And now I'm just deburring using a manual file. And now I'm just gonna assemble the whole thing. So it's just basically layering stuff on top of each other and then connecting it with a bolt, which is what I do the most of the time. And since the holes were pretty tight, which they should be to prevent wobble, I need to hammer it in. And on the other side I'm just using a wing nut. And before I tighten it, I align the elements which are clamped by the bolt and the wing nut nicely. So I still have a problem, it wobbles around a bit. Obviously, if it was a more serious build, I would be using 2 screws or bolts or whatever else. But since I'm pretty much winging it on the entire build, I'm just gonna use a wedge made out of some scrap plywood. Yeah, it's still not very good, as you see, it just shifted in there. So I'm gonna use my large screwdriver to really push it in to prevent any sort of wobble. Yeah, that's a lot better. Checking here if it wobbles when I chest it or shoulder it, because usually you bring it to your chest nowadays. So I want to make the butt a bit thicker. So this form is gonna go right there and make that part thicker. So here's the piece. And of course right now it will not match perfectly, so that is something that will need to be helped with a belt sander. But now I'm gonna just add 2 screws right here, here and here to hold it together. So I'm just gonna use some wood screws with a countersink. That's sufficient for this build. Now I'm using a belt sander. Always heed safety instructions of a belt sander, I'm serious. Those things are dangerous. If you don't have a belt sander, you can give your parts a bevel like this using a manual file. It will just take a lot of time. And now I'm using double-sided adhesive tape to connect those parts temporarily, and that helps me drill holes through both of them at the same time. This is a countersink bit, and it's like a conically shaped build which has like a cone that goes downwards into the wood, and that allows that countersink screw to be flush with the surface of the wood. And now you see my electrical screwdriver failing, at which time I decide to never trust robots again and to use human power to finish the job. So this time I'm using the countersink bit first, just because it's in my drill already and it's a pain in the butt to change those tools. But now I'm changing to my standard 3mm drill bit, and I'm actually pre-drilling the holes. It's important when working with wood, so that your wood doesn't splinter. And sorry, by splinter I mean split altogether. So using some human power to tighten it all. And now I'm gonna use the belt sander, sanding two pieces at once, so those two connected pieces, which makes them flush to each other. And for harder to reach areas, I'm using my mini belt sander. So yeah, I'm giving those areas a nice bevel, and I'm also gonna go all around this entire thing and give it a nice small bevel all the way around. It just literally adds another dimension to the work. It makes it look less quickly chopped out of a piece of plywood and more like it has been actually machined, if you know what I mean. Just adding small bevels like this to parts that are supposed to look industrial is always a good idea. And what you see me doing now, you saw me do in countless other videos. I'm using spray paint, and before it dries, I'm sprinkling some dust on top of it. And I'm doing the same thing for the mag. It's a rinse and repeat process. So I'm drowning it in that sand and dust, and then I'm also going to use that brush you see on the left in that container to remove all the rough sand particles and repeat the process again, basically leaving me with a lot of that fine dust sealed right into the paint. And this right here is my cutting plotter. So a cutting plotter is, this little device which cuts stencils. So this one cost me just around 150 euros, and it saves so much work, it has paid itself over 100 times by now. If you don't have one like this, you can also cut your stencils by hand, obviously. I have a video about that, so check it out. So it's cut it out of this thick vinyl foil. And the vinyl foil is also adhesive on the back side. So now I'm just peeling off all the parts that will basically be the hole. Peels off nicely. The stencil is designed, their logo is already designed as a snail, which is always an advantage. And press it firmly. The reason I'm applying this stencil foil after I have applied the initial paint and grunge layer is because otherwise you just paint and grunge over your stencil, covering it completely. So we're gonna spray the stencil here, and after that we're gonna apply some more dirt and grunge on top of the stencil additionally. And I'm also, of course, gonna duct tape off all the parts that are not supposed to get any spray paint on them. So here is how it looks after I peel off the vinyl. I would say the logo looks pretty cool. And what I want to do now is decorate the butt of this the butt of the butt. by using this piece of gas mask hose and some really tiny nails. I'm gonna attach this piece of rubberized thingy thing hose, which has this cool rifling to it, or those ribs, I don't know what you call it. Yeah, and that will look a lot more post-apocalyptic and also more stylish and functional. Let's do that. Man, this is gonna be the crudest build I ever made. Now this side already looks good enough for me, and I'm talking about the stock, because remember, I'm just adding a cool stock to this. But this side, it's kind of empty, especially in this recess area right here, so I'm gonna add something cool in here, something that looks like some part of the gun that serves some purpose, in quotation marks. So I found this thing, whatever it is. I don't know, it was in my junk crate. And it looks like a sort of energy pack for the gun. So yeah, I'm just gonna attach this here using zip ties. And this cable right here will go right into that small hole right there. One of the original screw holes of the gun. And this one will go around. Oh, and before I do all of that, to prevent it from shifting around a lot, I'm gonna add a stripe of double-sided adhesive tape, and that should prevent it from shifting. And you see I'm also making contact here, so I'm not like positioning it in the middle of nowhere, I'm making contact here. This is also to prevent it from wobbling around, because then it has more surfaces against which it can rest. So them bloody zip ties seem to be too short, which is a bummer. So what I'm gonna do now is daisy chain those big zip ties, and then since those are the last of the big ones I have right now, I'm also gonna daisy chain those small ones on the other side of it. So let's see how that looks. Now this is definitely long enough. And chop off the excess. There we go. Also, when working with zip ties and cutting off the ends, it creates quite a sharp edge. You could cut yourself on this while playing LARP or whatever. So what I always do is take a lighter and just melt it a bit. Don't breathe in the shit that comes out as you melt it. So now I'm applying those smaller zip ties. You can see it better here, and to balance things out visually, I'm gonna have two of them at this side. So it's a fat one here, two slim ones on this side. Looks even better than it would have with two of those thick ones. That red cable is held in there just by friction, because it's rubber or rubberized plastic material, and this one I couldn't actually properly use those screw clamps, because for that I would need to disassemble all of this and drill holes into the stock to allow the screws to go in there, so screw that. So I've just used some double-sided adhesive tape to keep it in place, and that's enough for this build. Alright guys, and you remember those drywall connectors which I got from the construction store for my Gauss rifle build? So I've bent one of them to fit on top of the gun. You can slide it on and off. So this is a nice base to mount a scope on top of that. However, I'm not gonna do that in this video because, again, speed build, I'm really low on time, sorry about that. So yeah, the last thing we're gonna add to this gun is a DCall right here, because this surface right here looks really empty. So I just grabbed the first DCall stencil that I found in my stencil stack, and it's the one from the AB80 jacket, which some of you have seen probably. So I'm just gonna reuse this on the stock of the gun. So here is how it looks after applying the stencil. Obviously I also applied some dust on top of it, and also I've sprayed over all the bright orange parts. Not a day goes by that I don't wish Nerf made guns that are black, not orange. It would be so much easier to mod. You see here on the trigger it's already peeling off. I'm not gonna deal with that right now. So yeah, but all in all, I'm quite happy with it for what it is. Is it crude as hell? Yes. Does it lack a scope and some highlights and some more detail? Yes, absolutely. This gotta be the crudest thing I ever built, but I think for a speed build it's okay, and I hope it gives you guys some ideas. So yeah. Alright folks, if you liked this video then like, comment, subscribe, share it with your tribe. Also support me on Patreon because that helps me a lot to make more of these videos for you. See ya!